Super Bowl rematch that lived up to it. What a win for Philadelphia. And oh, those drops for Kansas City. If you thought the Chargers were bad Sunday, KC was like, drop my beer. And nearly the catch of the year. Did Jalen Carter innovate a new play? Let's go around the horn. I am all for this.
Tony trusting the Chargers.
I am all for this. I'm all for onside kicks where you blast the ball 10 yards right into somebody, trying to force a fumble. I'm all into rugby plays. Innovate. If last year's Super Bowl had Philly thinking we had it all game and lost it at the end, last night flipped the script. Philly in Kansas City with the comeback. KC at home with the give-up. Devontae Smith making the catch. Marquez Valdes-Scantling could not. Kelsey, multiple head-scratching give-ups. Mahomes had a red zone pick that was ugly. So, National Paddle, it's a question you're thankful for, and you can see a mile away. Bill Plaschke, did Philly win this or Kansas City blow it?
You know, the Eagles are tough, they're resilient and all that, but they didn't drop those 5 passes. They didn't commit those 2 turnovers in the end zone. They gained 238 yards. The Chiefs outgained them by 100 yards. They ran almost double that amount of plays. The Chiefs should have won that game. They gave it away. That ball, Mahomes put the ball in MSV's hands at the goal line, just basically handed it to him for a touchdown for the game winner. He dropped it. Kelsey dropped it.
MVS, I think is what you're trying to say there. You got your letters confused there. Harry Lyles Jr., KC blow it or Philly win it?
Philly won it. If this Kansas City team is as good as we believe them to be, which has basically been the standard of the NFL since 2019, and you are the Philadelphia Eagles and you go on the road, the toughest place to play in the NFL, and you pull out a win when you were down 10 at halftime, you won that football game, because every single time we'd say that the Chiefs have enough to overcome their shortcomings. In this case, it was dropped passes, but the Eagles outscored them. They scored him against a Chiefs defense that I think everybody on this panel would say is good. So if they came out and played the better second half of football despite those mistakes by the Chiefs, they won the football game. Credit where it's due.
Israel Gutierrez?
Well, if you've looked at the Chiefs' last several second halves, the Eagles had them right where they wanted them. The Chiefs have been terrible in the second halves. They've only scored 1 touchdown in their last 5. And, yeah, yesterday was another example. You look at what they normally do. It's normally Travis Kelce, right? Mr. Reliable. Well, he fumbled the ball, had a drop also. And when you talk about the big picture, 9% of Kansas City Chiefs passes have been dropped. That is not a small number. That's the most over 10 games in the last 10 years.
Wow.
And so when you have the best player in your sport giving the ball to other players to gain yards and they do not execute, well, then what can you be? You can't be who you really are. So that isn't the Chiefs that we're looking at, especially the second halves aren't really the Chiefs. Is that maybe other teams catching up in the second half to some of the play calling, or is it just people not performing? Not sure yet, but so far not really good against some pretty decent teams.
All right, say that stat one more time just so we have it. The percentage of drops of all the passes thrown.
Yeah, 9%.
9%. I want to get back to that, but real quick, Frank, I want your answer first on whether Philly won it or KC blew it.
Man, Izzy did not leave a lot of turkey on that bone. I'm just happy the Chiefs played a game, and the Swift that dominated the conversation was DeAndre. So that was encouraging to see last night. This is on the Chiefs, and Izzy mentioned the stat. How do you play 3 straight games and you don't score in the second half? It's one thing to do it on the road, another thing to do it in Germany. This is at home. They have 1 fourth-quarter touchdown all season long. That quarterback is too good for them to only have 1 fourth-quarter touchdown this season. But they do have 26 drop passes. So that's, he's throwing it in a bad place, apparently, right into their hands. They're just not catching it.
Well, let me just take this to its natural end here then. They didn't make a move for a receiver at a deadline, Frank. Those drops are brutal. Mahomes said afterwards that he could have thrown it better to Valdes-Scantling, which I guess is a good teammate and classy. I don't think anyone agrees with that. Israel just gave that stat. Frank, is the franchise failing their quarterback?
Well, Tony, I still think, let's face it, the combination of Mahomes to Kelsey is what's going to carry them. They're still in a position to finish with the best record in the AFC. And you look at Mahomes, he's never played a road playoff game. I still think they're in line to do that. So I'm not going to go crazy after this game. It's concerning. Maybe call up Eric Bieniemy, their old offensive coordinator, and try to figure out what the heck's happening with this team.
Israel Gutierrez?
Well, the defense is still great, and it's going to keep them pretty much in every single game. To me, this is more of, hey, can we get through the rest of this season with Patrick Mahomes? And maybe, maybe it comes to sort of a level. Maybe these drops don't happen anymore. But if they do, and they continue to struggle throughout the season, next season has to be one of those years where you just get him his talent again. It's sort of like Randy Moss when Tom Brady got him in New England. You've got to get him some game breakers at that wide receiver position, because otherwise you're not utilizing everything that you can in Patrick Mahomes.
Harry, we heard so much how this team got past letting Tyreek Hill move last year. Is it looking like they're going to be able to do that this year?
I think they, oddly enough, still can. I mean, you still have Jerick McKinnon, who was a key weapon for you last year and in your playoff run. I think Rashee Rice is a really good young receiver that is still developing and has shown a lot of promise for them. Mecole Hardman is back. I think he's only been back for, 2 or 3 weeks. And then Marquez Valdes-Scantling is better than what he was last night. Obviously, the drops have been a problem, and that 9% number is very alarming, but I still, and maybe I'm just hard-headed, which, my mom would tell me I am, but I think they could still overcome these drops because I think Patrick Mahomes is that damn good.
I hear you, but so nobody in this panel is going to say they're doing Mahomes a disservice, that they're derelict in their duty,
kind of are, but
not getting a receiver. Plaschke, I'll give you the last word on this.
Yeah, they're doing Mahomes a disservice, but credit to him, he won't throw him under the bus. He keeps supporting his receivers.
I mean, I heard
look
it.
At this.
Classy.
They have 168 yards rushing. They can run the ball against the league's best run defense. They have a great secondary. They held A.J. Brown to 1 catch. They still can run. They still can play defense. They'll have home field advantage. They have an easy schedule coming up. They'll still be back in the Super Bowl.
Now the Eagles side of it. Every win, and now it's 9-1, they say, we're still not playing our best ball, but we're getting there. Do you think this team is better than last year's team, Frank?
I think they are. I think defensively they're very good. I do think Jalen Hurts, there are times when he needs to be a little bit better. I mean, into the third quarter, he was 5 for 7. I get it. On 4th and 1, they always score. And he did a good job getting into the end zone when they needed it. But the fact that they could run the ball, their defense is good, and their quarterback, even when he's not at his best, still finds a way to win, says a lot about this team. And, Tony, right now, they're on pace to host 2 playoff games. Division round, and then obviously the NFC Championship game. 2 home wins is probably going to get them into the Super Bowl.
Bill Plaschke, do you view this Eagles team as better than last year, as the favorite in the NFC?
No, and I don't think they view themselves as that. I think they haven't played a great game this season. A new offensive coordinator. Yep. Hurts has got the knee issues. I don't think they're as good as last year, and I think San Francisco is more complete. I think at this point, watching last night, I think the Eagles will tell you this. They need to get better. They need to get more versatile.
Aaron Lyles?
They need to be better defensively.
Yeah, I don't know that they're better than last season, but I do think after a certain point, we are 2.5 months into the season. There's only so many times that you can say we still haven't played our best game yet. It has to come at some point. I think this team has left a lot to be desired offensively just based off what we have seen last year. Obviously, A.J. Brown has had some big games, but again, I think because we still have not seen their best game, it's hard for me to say that they're better than they were last year because we saw it quite often last year.
And Israel Gutierrez after the horn.
Well, the secondary is not the greatest, but somehow the defense keeps them in games. They have more of an identity this year. It felt like maybe last year they set that identity, and this year they're just kind of riding it. And yeah, I think they might not be the most talented team, but if you face them up with the 49ers, you've got Brock Purdy versus Jalen Hurts. I'm going to put my money on Jalen Hurts and the way they win, the way they run the ball, and the way they defend in the front.
How about for adjustments, though? I mean, Hurts was on his back for half the game, the first half. They come back in the second half. He's throwing the ball a second sooner, 2 seconds to get the ball out. They're throwing these little hitches, and then they hit Devontae Smith for the biggest play. Hurts not sacked in the second half. We've been horned. We'll move on.
Caught it.
More NFL news. Steelers firing offensive coordinator Matt Canada. It was unanimous on yesterday's panel that it had to happen. The Steelers locker room, as diplomatic as possible, but also seemed to feel that way. There will be a new play caller. Whether that will unlock and unmuck this offense is an entirely different question. Israel, how significant is Pittsburgh's in-season move?
It's pretty significant when you consider this is not something that the Pittsburgh Steelers do, make these in-season changes at coordinator. And you've been having fan bases, their fans across the country. Snoop Dogg has been crying about this, probably for a couple offensive coordinators, actually. But yeah, this has been calling for a long time. And the fact that they went through and executed getting rid of Matt Canada, it just tells you that there's something at stake here. Because I think if you look and say, hey, if they were 3-7 or 3-6 in this situation and the offense was terrible, they probably wouldn't fire him. They're probably getting rid of him now because they feel like they have something they can can accomplish. And when you keep throwing the ball behind the line of scrimmage, you're not really going to get that to happen. When you keep getting outgained in every single game you play, you've got to find somebody to sort of blame there to change something. And it's just been happening for far too long. So I think, who knows if it's going to actually turn everything around, but it had to be.
Well, that's my next question. Frank Isola, they made the move. Everyone seems to be unanimous that they should have made the move. Can it change something?
Well, who's behind center? Is it Patrick Mahomes? Is it Joe Burrow? Or is it a quarterback that right now is probably just average? And to Izzy's point, the Steelers don't do this. So coaches, and Mike Tomlin is kind of in this boat where they talk about ignore the noise. Well, certainly the fans were complaining, but I think when it started in the locker room, that's why I'm surprised. Because the Steelers just don't do stuff like this. They make changes, and to me, it sounds like a desperation move. But all of a sudden, the quarterback's going to get better. You really think it's just about the plays that they're running? I'm not buying it.
Go Plashke.
This is the first time the Steelers have made a major coordinator or coaching change in the middle of the season since 1941. This never, ever happens. Check the stats.
Okay, yeah. I mean,
it's right.
You hear that over and over again, but I didn't know it was 1941.
It's unbelievable. And I agree with Frank, though. Kenny Pickett's is a problem. You got to make another change. You got to get rid of Kenny Pickett. He's not working out. He's a 28th ranked quarterback. I think he's
young,
bogging him down.
Frank, you wanted the point when Bill agreed with you. Then you wanted to take the point away when you said he's done in his second season. Harry Lyles Jr., they made the move. Can it fix their offense?
It can't make it worse. I mean, the moment I knew Matt Canada was in trouble was when we were at College Game Day in Tuscaloosa, Alabama 2 or 3 weeks ago, and there was a fire Matt Canada sign front and center, right? And that's not in Pittsburgh, right? So clearly the heat was on, but when you are trailing or you are outgained 27 of 36 times when you're the offensive coordinator, that's not even something that a franchise like the Pittsburgh Steelers can ignore, right? Because we've all mentioned that this is not something that they do, but when you are that poor, you have to make a change. And I think everybody would agree when you look at the weapons that they have between Najee Harris, George Pickens, offensively, it looks like they should be able to do better than what they've been doing. And they clearly do enough defensively to keep themselves in football games. So, yes, a change had to happen. It's not surprising that it finally came off of a loss.
A playoff team right now as we head into the next week of the NFL season. A lot of why not us feelings, right? The Browns have to feel that way. I mean, it's Jacksonville, Houston, they all. Why not us if everybody's losing every other week? We'll take a break right here. Buy or sell next.
DTR.
Around the Horn is presented by Bullet Frontier Whiskey. Please drink responsibly. Part of Happy Hour. Welcome back to Around the Horn, coming to you from the Seaport, brought to you by Chase.
You always have to deal with locker room issues. Sometimes y'all know about them and sometimes you don't. Sometimes you want to know more than you're entitled to know. I'm going to protect my players. Angel is a part of this basketball team, and Angel will be back sooner than later.
No further explanation once again from Kim Mulkey on Angel Reese. Since she was benched for the second half versus Kent State, coach's decision, Reese has missed back-to-back games. LSU came back in the Kent State game, won by 30, then rolled Southeast Louisiana and Texas Southern by nearly 100 points, as you'd expect for the champs. Tournament in the Cayman Islands next. Bill, the question, does Mulkey owe a more edifying explanation about their star player? And also, do you hear a coach protecting their player like Mulkey insists?
Well, first off, I hear a coach who's condescending, who's arrogant, who's smart aleck. Her press conferences are horrible. I hate watching them. But she's right. What stays in the locker room should stay in the locker room. A personal life of a player should remain personal unless the player wants to disclose it. She needs to protect her players, so she's doing the right thing. She's just doing it in the wrong way.
Harry Lyles Jr.?
Yeah, I understand why people have their gripes with Kim Mulkey on this because she doesn't have a track record that would honestly make us believe that she is protecting her players. But in this case, I do think that it's fine to say we don't know what's going on because we don't, and just allow this to play out in a way that is going to be not just the best for Angel Reese, but just for everybody involved. Because again, we don't know the details of this, and obviously we've seen tweets from family members on the team, former players, things like that. But we can't allow that to make us rush to find something out that perhaps isn't our business.
Israel Gutierrez?
I hear a coach who wants it to be known that she's protecting her players, which is funny because she doesn't protect them from airborne viruses. I do think with Angel Reese, we're probably going to find out pretty soon. She said in there, hey, she'll be here sooner rather than later. It just seems like she's using sort of an extended coaching moment, whatever it is. It doesn't seem like it's grades, which has been floated around, because she was benched at the second half of a previous game, so that wouldn't seem to make sense. I'm sure we'll find out shortly, but Kim will probably make a big to-do out of that as well.
And Frank Isola.
Could sudden fame, all that money factor into it? Perhaps, but you know what? The coach isn't going to say. I think she's right, but guess what? The reporters are allowed to try to find out what the deal is. They don't just have to ask the coach. They could try to talk to other people around the program to find out what the deal is. But it sounds like she's going to play again, which I guess is most important then.
My point here is that when you say coach's decision and leave it at that, you're allowing a different conversation to happen elsewhere. And then does that not put your player in a position where people are making guesses and assumptions?
That conversation's going to happen anyway. If she said it's disciplinary, some people might say, oh, they're lying. It's an academic reason. People are going to talk anyway. Social media is still going to be social media.
Frank, you suggest fame and money. I mean, there's a lot of players who have played this game before and currently play this game that get name, image, and likeness and are famous players as well, and they're not necessarily in the same spotlight and position that they are now. My point is, Kim Mulkey has the ability and will happily say whatever she wants at any moment. At this moment, she's not saying anything, and we have to go forward with that. We'll move on. Another suspension for Kareem Jackson for a dangerous hit. For the season, Jackson has been flagged and suspended 2 games already for these hits. So that was a huge issue for him personally in his 14th year in the league. But also I want you to consider this. This was not flagged on the field, which was huge in the game because Dobbs fumbled, and that turned everything over in what would end up being a 1-point finish. So, Harry, the big deal that a player is clearly unable to play by the rules and is a danger on the field, but also that this suspension-worthy illegal tackle was missed by the refs in the game.
Yeah, I think we got to give the refs a little bit of a break here just because I don't think people honestly realize how fast things are moving out there on the football field, okay? I mean, like, as somebody that spends time on the sideline during college football games, I could tell you the pace of the game is incredibly quick then, so it's even faster in the NFL. The fact that Kareem Jackson is a repeat offender, keeps doing this, that is the issue. Like, this is not something that was an accident. We literally just showed a highlight tape of what not to do. So, yes, the problem lies in Kareem Jackson. That is the bigger issue.
Israel Gutierrez?
This game is way too fast. It happens way too fast. It can't be legislated. Just ask Tom Brady for safety. And yeah, I'm not gonna blame the referees for this one. I'd rather blame Kareem Jackson. You mentioned it, 14 years in the league. You should know what an illegal tackle is right now. You're doing it over and over again this year. That was absolutely an illegal tackle on Josh Dobbs. Referees missed it. Oh well. It's definitely the bigger deal that he.
Jackson did share Tom Brady's comments today. It's funny you bring that up, Israel, in that we've lost the thread of the game and we can't play football anymore. Frank, where are you on this?
Oh, now all of a sudden Tom Brady's Ray Nitschke, huh? I'll tell you what, when I look at some of those plays, those are football plays. And some of those are plays that Ronnie Lott was glorified for making.
Precisely. I think that's the point.
Some of those he's headhunting there. And I find it interesting, the union, you're going to defend a rank and file member who's clearly trying to hurt a rank and file member. That's an interesting. Bill Plaschke.
This is the scariest player in football today. His hits have results. Those results are concussions. A handful of players have suffered concussions because of him, directly because of him. They should ban him from the league for the rest of the season. He should suspend the rest of the season.
If it were a rookie and they were still finding out about the calls in the NFL, that's one thing. It's his 14th year. He won a national championship in college when it was called.
Well, hold on. I'm just trying to.
Happy Thanksgiving. Bill Plaschke, Israel Gutierrez. Showdown next.
All right.
Responsibly. Part of Happy Hour.
Plaschke, Gutierrez at Showdown, and Tom Brady on the Stephen A. Smith Show.
I think there's a lot of mediocrity in today's NFL. I don't see the excellence that I saw in the past. I think the coaching isn't as good as it was. I don't think the development of young players is as good as it was. The rules have allowed a lot of bad habits to get into the actual performance of the game.
Boom! There he is in retirement going after this current generation. Can he do that, Bill, seeing as he was playing, what, yesterday?
No, he can't do that. He's screaming off his front lawn. He's workshopping his role as a commentator in the future. But he's got to be out of the game in a few years. It's ridiculous.
Israel?
I'm sorry. Wasn't this the man who got hurt and the NFL changed the rule for him? I mean, come on. Like, he just got done playing. He knows for 20 years that there's faster players now than there were before. This just sounds like a guy who just got old.
This is the move, though. Once you retire, you got to go after the next one. You got to Barkley it, right? We'll move on. Jalen Carter's near interception of the Mahomes spike. He said he's seen it on YouTube. Some high school kid tried it and actually caught it. He thought that was a good idea. That happened in 2015. And in 2017, Grady Jarrett of Atlanta did it against the Jets, but it was called back because of a penalty. So maybe not an inventor, but an innovator. Could this be a game-changing play, Israel?
Well, it is now that it's gotten the attention, because obviously if it's happened before and we haven't really talked about it, you go ahead and take a step back before you spike it. Now I think every quarterback's just going to do that.
This can work. This is a revelation. This is the same team that has made the tush push tremendous. They can figure this out. They can make this work.
Bill Plaschke, I believe we're due for a tradition unlike any other. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Tony. I just want to stress to everyone the greatest Thanksgiving part of the Thanksgiving feast is the cranberry jelly. Not the cranberry sauce, the cranberry jelly. Don't be fooled. You go buy a can of the cranberry jelly, put it in the refrigerator for 3 days, bring it out, open it up, cut it out, put it on a bowl. Look at the fine ridges, the beautiful jellied ridges. Slice into the ridges. Slice a piece and put a little disc of it on top of your Thanksgiving Day dinner.
How am I always
better than the roast.
All right, you're all bandaged to the kids' table.
Cranberry jelly.
We're on a 143.5-hour break. See you after the holiday.